Recognizes Steve King, the ranking member of the Immigration Committee on the Judiciary Committee from Iowa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'd first like to start out with an inquiry of Ambassador Wilson. And I'm interested in the trip you took to Niger. And I understand some of the work that you did there. Was that overt or covert on that mission?
I have said repeatedly that my trip was made at the request of my government. I made it very clear at the CIA, and this is in the June 10th, 2002 memo that was entered into evidence in the U.S. versus Libby case. That if we
my clock is ticking, Ambassador. Could you just help me in overt or covert?
I would have to go. I would have to have approval of the State Department and indeed of the ambassador there.
That's a question that's classified. You can't answer that?
I also made it clear to my interlocutors that I had questions that I had been asked to do, so it was not covert.
It was not covert?
That's correct.
Okay, and when you came back from there, did you deliver a report to the CIA?
I did indeed. There were 2 CIA officers who came to my house within an hour of my having returned from Niger.
Was it a written report?
It was an oral report. I also provided an oral briefing to the ambassador there before I left, as well as an oral briefing to another State Department employee in Niamey.
And was that report then classified? Did it become a classified report after you delivered it to the CIA?
The report was classified by the CIA. My understanding is I never saw the written report until parts of it were declassified and published.
And the parts of it were declassified, but not all of it. Some of it remains classified?
I don't know, because I've only seen what's been declassified, sir.
That's curious, because you would be the individual that delivered it all. The parts you've seen that were declassified wouldn't be the entirety of the report, so one can conclude the parts that you have not seen would be classified to this day?
The role of the reports officer is to take the raw data and turn it into a report that is then distributed throughout the intelligence community using appropriate, I suppose, intelligence nomenclature.
I understand. Then did you view your report that you had delivered to the CIA as classified in its entirety at the time? And were you bound by that confidentiality of classified information that you had gathered?
I did not classify it. I did not view it as classified information. It was a report that I gave to the CIA at their request. The mission was undertaken as a discrete mission, but it was not a classified mission.
So, Ambassador, let me get this right. Then, after the CIA left your home and you had delivered mostly the oral report to them, did you believe that you were free to disseminate the knowledge that you'd accumulated on the government's dime anywhere you chose?
The government's dime, I would define that as I made no wages for this 8 days in Niamey, Niger.
Well, let's not get bogged down in that. Did you believe that you could disseminate that information then to the public at will, or did you believe that you were bound by some confidentiality, at least to the level of integrity of the intel that you were bringing in for the government?
Congressman, I did not. It was a discrete mission. It was undertaken at the request of my government, and it was handled on a need-to-know basis. That's correct.
Okay, and then so it is classified. And have you then leaked any of that to the press prior to the time that it...
Sorry, classified is perhaps the wrong one. I would not describe it as classified. I would describe it as discrete.
Fine. Did you then leak any of that information to the press prior to your July 6th op-ed that you wrote?
First of all, I shared it with Democratic senators at that trip after the President's State of the Union address and after Dr. Al-Baradei testified before the UN Security Council that the documents that he had received from the Department of State, that was March 17th, 2000.
But none of those people are press, are they? So did you leak any of that to the press?
And after I spoke to the Democratic senators, a New York Times reporter asked me if I would share some of the details of the story with him.
And so would that be the reporter Walter Pincus?
No, that would be Nick Kristof.
Okay, I'm seeing here an article by Walter Pincus revealed June 12th, which would be prior to your July 6th article, that he had an unnamed retired diplomat had given the CIA a negative report. Would that be you that he's referring to?
Mr. Pincus learned of my name and he called me.
So you did talk with him?
So I did talk to him, yes, sir.
Okay. Let me take another little tack here, and that is you've referenced the 16 words that you allege to be I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I picked these things out of here that say today, fundamental misstatements of fact in the President's State of the Union address. I take that to mean that you disagree with the facts. Do you believe that the President intended to misinform the American people?
My view on that is that somebody put a statement in the President's mouth that was not sustained by the evidence, and that, of course, became apparent the day after my article appeared when the President's spokesman said to the press that the 16 words do not rise to the level of inclusion in the State of the Union.
And I'm reading from these 16 words, and they seem to be honest and true to this day. The British government has learned that Saddam Hussein recently sought significant quantities of uranium from Africa, and yet your written testimony references sales, not seeking those quantities, but actually the sales of those quantities. Isn't that a bit deceptive as a part of your testimony here at the beginning of this hearing?
Congressman, in March, the Director General of the IAEA testified to the UN Security Council that the information was provided him by the Department of State to undergird the assertion in the President's statement.
But your reference is sales. The President's reference is sought uranium. There's a distinction there, wouldn't you agree?
Congressman, everything that the White House and the administration has said since Dr. al-Baradei's statement indicates that, in fact...
That's not the answer to my question. Do you recognize the distinction between the two?
Congressman, I think...
The gentleman's time has expired. You may finish.
I would yield back if the Honorable Ambassador will yield back as well, Mr. Chairman.
Well,